And even more terrifying, another man was arrested and charged with his early crimes.
Detective Delano was there, and he goes, oh yeah, there was a guy that was arrested. He was a Delaware Park rapist. And that's when I said, yeah, that was Anthony Capozzi. I remember him.
I said, well, where is he now? Because he just didn't do these attacks. He said, he's in jail. He's in jail for these crimes. I said, well, we got to find him because he didn't do those crimes then.
In fact, Anthony Capozzi is in Attica prison, where he's been for 21 years.
There was absolutely no physical evidence linking him to the crimes. He was convicted basically on 2 eyewitness testimonies. That's it.
We went to Attica prison. We sat down with Anthony Capozzi, and we started talking to him. And Anthony has some decreased mental capacity.
The investigators ask Anthony if he was involved in the Delaware Park rapes.
He said, I would never do that. I have sisters at home. I would never rape a woman. He wanted to cut the interview short because it was spaghetti night that day at Attica, and he didn't want to miss the spaghetti dinner.
I remember when we walked out of the prison, all 3 of us looked at each other and we said, no way is this our guy. And so that actually started another lead in the investigation, starting to take another look at those attacks that Anthony Capozzi was arrested for.
Detectives immediately dig into the old Delaware Park rape files, hoping for new clues to the bike path killer's identity. They make 2 case breakthroughs. First, a critical statement from a rape survivor.
In one of those files, Scott found a mention, a note, that the Buffalo Police Department had received a complaint from the rape victim in 1981 that a couple days following her rape, her family trying to cheer her up took her to a local shopping mall.
Outside the mall, the rape victim came face to face with her attacker.
He was with his wife, pushing a small child in a stroller. Immediately, they both recognized each other.
They left in a hurry, but a relative of hers followed him to his car and got the license plate number.
Police ran the plates. The vehicle belonged to a man named Wilfredo Carabello.
Buffalo police, when they went to interview Wilfredo Carballo, he denied having his vehicle used, and nobody used it. It was in his garage. And they did a photo array, took a photo of Wilfredo, and went back to the victim, and the victim could not identify Wilfredo Carballo.
But with Carabello's car now linked to the bike path killer, investigators need to speak with him again. While Detective Rosansky tracks down his current whereabouts, task force members dig up a second promising lead, this time in the Linda Yalem case file.
Following the death of Linda Yalem, a local worker named Bob had called Amherst Police Department and said that he had a coworker he thought resembled the sketch of the bike path rapist. And Bob's co-worker was a gentleman by the name of Altimio Sanchez.
The 2 worked together on the graveyard shift at a local brass factory.
Bob decided to go to the police because not only had he seen Al Sanchez the day before Linda Yalem's murder, but on the bike path.
He'd seen him on the bike path where he acted like he didn't recognize him, although they're co-workers.
The police then went out to the brass factory and discovered that Al Sanchez had been off during the 2 rapes and the murder.
In 1990, police had questioned Sanchez about the murder of Linda Yalem.
He was willing to come in to be interviewed, and they talked to him, but he didn't quite match the description that had been given by one of the victims. His hairline was different. He was willing to be fingerprinted, and they wanted his fingerprints because they wanted to see if it matched those found on a water bottle that was found near one of the rape victims, and they didn't match. So ultimately, they let him go.
But suddenly these 2 old leads come together. Wilfredo Carabello, the owner of the car spotted at the mall, contacts detectives.
I was in the car with Al when we received the phone call from him. We said, hello, yeah, we're with the Erie County Sheriff's Office.
He said, I know why you're looking for me. It's about that thing that happened many years ago. I wasn't driving the vehicle. My nephew, Altemio Sanchez, was driving the vehicle.
It's the moment detectives have been waiting for. They now have eyewitnesses that tie Sanchez to 2 of the crimes. After 20 years, the pieces of the puzzle are finally falling into place.
Immediately, I made phone calls and got everybody back to the office that Wednesday, the whole task force at 3 o'clock for a meeting.
At the meeting, the task force members review the new evidence. Sanchez was absent from work and seen on the bike path the day Linda Yalom was murdered. His uncle admits Sanchez was driving his car when it was spotted at the mall. And Sanchez fits the description of the killer.
I could tell you every person in that room, all 12, instantly came up with the same thought. Holy cow, we got to get surveillance on this guy.
Detectives need to obtain DNA from Sanchez to prove their case, and there's no time to waste.
Can you imagine if we have him as a suspect, and while we have him, he either flees, or God help us, he victimizes another woman.
Convinced that Altemio Sanchez is the notorious bike path killer, detectives urgently need a sample of his DNA to make a positive identification.
The investigators hatched a plan to follow the defendant and get his, what we call, abandoned DNA.
Investigators put a tail on Sanchez. When he and his wife enter a restaurant, they make their move.
We grabbed the manager and we said we would like them to leave the table intact and not touch it after these individuals left. They were very cooperative at the restaurant. And ultimately, when they left, the evidence was gathered.
I tested the samples. I swabbed the straw initially, the glass that he drank from, swabbed the outside rim of the glass, and then I swabbed the napkin.
The DNA samples are sent to the lab. The next day, investigators get the call they've been waiting for.
Dr. Simmons called me on the cell phone, and I just said, hang on 1 second. I put him on speaker right away, put the phone down on the table. I said, go ahead, John, everybody's here. We're sitting around the table, and his exact words were, you got him.
The long hunt for the bike path killer is finally over.
I can't believe we got him. We got that. And then automatically you kick back into mode. We got to figure out how we're going to do this. How are we going to take him down?
But Sanchez gives up without a fight. He's pulled over by police as he leaves work.
He simply pulled over to the side of the road and he stopped. And at that point, we surrounded him. He was removed from the vehicle. He was very compliant.
The 48-year-old father of 2 is arrested and escorted to the sheriff's department for questioning. Once in custody, he stonewalls detectives.
Every time we asked him a question, or we confronted him with a fact, he would say the same response. That's what you say. That's all he kept on saying. All he uttered, that's what you say. They showed him crime scene photos. That's what you say. We told him where we got his DNA from. That's what you say.
While Sanchez is being interviewed, his wife is questioned at a separate location.
She couldn't believe it. She didn't want to believe it. She did acknowledge that he had been spoken to about this case in the past. She knew, and obviously didn't believe it and thought it was nothing. But the further we got into questioning her about his medical history, she acknowledged that he in fact did have a vasectomy. Everything that we had told her, evidence that we had had against him, things that she was confirming for us, things we already knew.
After an intense 8-hour interrogation, Altemio Sanchez still refuses to give up any information.
I walked in the room, I said, it's a wrap. We're done. And Altemio Sanchez stood up, like he was going to walk out of the room. And it kind of startled me for a second. Where do you think you're going? You're not going anywhere. You're not going home tonight. You're never going home. You're under arrest for murder. You're never going home.
News of the arrest quickly reaches the victims' friends and families.
Me and my grandma were in a store shopping. I got a phone call that they had arrested Altemio Sanchez, and they were charging him with my mom's murder and that he was in custody, and we just started crying in the middle of the store. I'm sure we looked foolish, but we were just crying.
My mom called me and said, hey, there's a break in the case. They caught Linda's killer. I'm like, no way.
I was just shocked to find out that he was just an ordinary guy like you'd find in your neighborhood.
While authorities compile evidence to put Sanchez away for life, they also try to free an innocent man.
Getting Capozzi released was probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my career. They all overlooked quite a bit to get a conviction on Anthony, and it was bordering on bizarre trying to get him out.
The court requires physical evidence to exonerate Capozzi. Task force members find slides stored from the rape kits of Capozzi's alleged victims.
That's when the search warrant was drafted, and we got the slides. That's either definitively going to tell us if it's Capozzi or somebody else. Once those results came back that it was not Capozzi and it was Sanchez, within a few days, we confirmed our results. Within a few days of that, it was our motion to dismiss against Anthony Capozzi.
After spending 22 years in prison, Capozzi is released to the care of the Buffalo Psychiatric Center. Capozzi's relatives and members of the task force are there to greet him.
The reaction of his family, it was overwhelming. You don't often get to meet good people like that and be able to do something like that for someone. It may have been a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity in my career.
Although Sanchez admits to committing more than 10 rapes, he can't be charged. The statute of limitations on those crimes has expired. But faced with overwhelming evidence, he pleads guilty to all 3 murders.
We knew we had him like a trap rat. DNA matched on all of the crime scenes we looked for. I just couldn't see him going to trial.
In a hushed courtroom, Sanchez makes a public apology for his crimes.
Whatever sentence I get today, I deserve. I know I'm going to be spending life behind bars, never to see the streets again. But I committed, I did these crimes, and I should pay for these crimes. To Mr. Diver and the Allen family, I apologize, but I know I can never bring back your loved ones. But what you said today here in court was true about me, and I will pay for this for the rest of my life. Thank you.
Sanchez is sentenced to 75 years to life. In prison, investigators question him about his compulsions.
He indicated that his motive for committing his crimes was just some uncontrollable urge to do it. The guy asked him, 12 years, what happened, where were you? He just said, I learned to control it. It's just something I wanted to do, and I couldn't stop myself from doing it.
You do a lot of things in 35 years of police work. You come across a lot of different people, but this man was just the worst.
For others, like one of Sanchez's early rape victims, it's a chance to move on.
I hope that people learn that you can still function every day and go about your life